Hello, welcome back to Life in Six Strings, and look who is here. The man that Total Guitar magazine featured him in their list of best blues players in the world right now. It's Chris Buck. Hey, how you doing?
Not too bad, thank you. That was my nan voting repeatedly for me, I think, that accolade. But,
I mean, I follow you on Instagram. I've looked at some of your interviews and stuff, and you're an incredible guitarist.
no, thank
But,
you.
but you're self-deprecating. You are brilliant at what you do, and even then, it's like, do you ever think to yourself, "Oh, I'll pat myself on the back"? Yeah, thank you.
I think even if I was kind of inclined to, I think it's one of those things that if you stop too long to sort of think about what you do well or what you maybe don't do so well, I think it's the moment at which you disappear up your own derriere, you know. So I don't think about it, to be honest. All I do is what I do. I try and get better, and as long as people seem to enjoy it, I'll happily take that. But yeah, it's cool. I mean, stuff like that, you know. Music's not gymnastics, is it? You can't really assign scores or numbers to it, really. You know, one man's meatloaf is another man's poison. But it's kind of, you know, as long as people seem to kind of enjoy what I do, I'll happily take that any day of the week. So yeah, it's a bit surreal to see my name on lists like that, though. So.
And even Slash, and I'm going to swear right now, so excuse me, Slash said he's a fucking awesome guitar player.
The check's in the post. Yeah, that was surreal. I got up to play with him in Birmingham in 2012, I think it was. I was 21 at the time.
Oh my God.
And absolutely bricking it. It was him and Miles and the Conspirators.
Yeah.
And we did sound check together in the afternoon. Long, boring story short. A friend of mine, Alan Niven, used to manage GNR back in the day. So through from 86 to 91, I think, managed them, took them from a kind of shitty sort of LA Sunset Strip band. I think the last gig Alan did managing them was Wembley Stadium. So was with them on that entire kind of journey, and is still very good friends with Slash. Still very good friends with all of them, bar Axel, weirdly. I don't know how that happens.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, and he's still good mates with Slash. So unbeknownst to me, he'd been kind of drip feeding videos and audio clips of me to Slash, saying, you know, if ever the moment arises, have a jam with him. And then it all culminated in a phone call as I'm walking around Lidl's in that sort of the middle aisle where you can come away with a jackhammer and some cheese, saying, do you want to come up to Birmingham and jam? And I was like, no, okay. So we went up, and I genuinely thought he meant at sound check, you know, it was going to be a case of, and that was that. And then before I know it, I'm on stage in front of like 12,000 people.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it was just as well. It was Alan kind of barred me from telling anyone beforehand. He said, look, don't tell anyone. It'll spoil the kind of surprise element of it. And
Oh no!
I know. I mean, the only people I told were my wife and my parents who came up. But because it was the closest dates he was doing to Wales on that tour, there happened to be a load of my mates there anyway, who just happened to be filming around that time. And there's a brilliant clip taken from like right up in the gods at the back of the NIA where a friend of mine and his wife were there. And Slash introduces me, and I think it was at the time I was kind of living semi-permanently in Birmingham, so I think he either kind of got carried away with that or genuinely thought I was from Birmingham or wanted to endear me to the local Brummie crowd, introduced me as a local lad. And there's this great clip where Andrew, my mate, and his wife are filming, and you can hear his wife in the background. As soon as Slash says he's from Birmingham, you can hear her going, no, he's not, he's from Wales. So the only clip of that is, scarred by Julie at the front.
That's funny you say that, because I actually thought you were Brummie first of all as well. And it wasn't until I was watching, you know, the NAM show that you did at Norm's Rare Guitars.
Yeah.
And he said, you're Welsh. And I was like, really?
It's a cross I'll have to bear.
As soon as he said it, I could hear it. But for some reason, I just thought I could hear a Brummie accent.
It's funny, I spoke to a mate of mine the other day who I haven't spoken to since like sixth form, so like a good while.
Yeah.
And he was amazed because he's been watching me on YouTube, because I do this YouTube thing once a week, and he's been watching me on there, and he was intrigued to phone me as much as anything to see if I'd lost my accent, because he said, you don't sound anything like you used to. And I get so much grief online about speaking too quickly and with too heavy an accent. I've started to sort of slow down and enunciate and try and speak the Queen's English. So, yeah, my mates sort of quite confused by it all, really. But I'd still sound thoroughly Welsh to me, but I guess it's gone lost somewhere in the mix a little bit, hopefully.
Oh, but it always gets diluted, doesn't it? I think when you move away from home, because I guess you're not living in Wales anymore, are you?
I'm all about the place. I'm in France at the moment, but I kind of bouncing all over the shop, to be honest.
Yeah.
So yeah, just wherever I lay my hat or my amp usually. So
As the song goes.
Yeah.
Obviously we've got the Twitch audience. They're watching this. And Brute says, Chris, who did you look up to when you started?
Funnily enough, Slash, which made the whole thing even more surreal, to be honest. Slash was the first guy that I kind of really latched on to. I remember my old man turned me on to Clapton and Stevie Ray Vaughan and all the kind of usual suspects. Not through any kind of massive love of it himself so much as, right, he's taken an interest in the guitar, let's show him some guitar guys, you know.
Yeah.
So I found all the usual suspects through my parents, but then I think Guns N' Roses were the first band that I kind of discovered myself, which I think is always a pretty big moment because suddenly it's your thing, you know. This is mine. Nobody else I knew at the time listened to Guns N' Roses, so I fell down that rabbit hole very deeply and, you know, was on eBay as a kid buying bootlegs and live DVDs from back in the early 90s.
Yeah.
So Slash was undoubtedly the kind of biggest influence I had. But I think, bizarrely, I kind of worked back chronologically from there. So reading that Slash was a big Aerosmith fan, kind of worked back to Joe Perry, worked back from Joe Perry to Jimmy Page, and back from there, you know, to Clapton and all that kind of stuff. So Slash, I guess, is the biggest influence, you know, musically. But yeah, I don't know, any great guitar players, to be honest, have probably sort of amalgamated their playing into my style over the years, you know. So
Can you remember the GNR song that you listened to that you were like, okay, oh my God?
Mr. Brownstone.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
And do you know what? It wasn't actually Mr. Brownstone. Someone bought me Guns N' Roses' Greatest Hits, I think, and I'm not even sure that's on the Greatest Hits. But I listened to that through and was sort of sufficiently intrigued as to kind of get Appetite. So I went out and bought Appetite for Destruction and listened to that from the start. And I think, obviously, I'd heard Welcome to the Jungle. I think Night Train was the first track that I wasn't kind of familiar with prior to that. But by the time I got to track 5, I was like, this is the best band in the world. These are going to be my favourite band ever from now on. So Mr. Brownstone was the first moment of kind of like, right, this is where I don't think at that point I'd really kind of decided that I was going to be a musician either, per se. It was something that I did. You know, I played guitar in school because it coincided with maths lessons.
Yeah.
So I could get out of maths for a bit. But hearing that was like the first moment of like, right, that's what I want to do. I want to be in a band. I want to be a rock star. I want to do all of the stuff Slash did minus the bad stuff. So
Yeah, and he looked so cool as well, didn't he? I think that was the thing as well. I just always remember that being like, this man is amazing. He's so beautiful and just mesmerizing the way he was playing and stuff. So how old were you at the time then? How old were you when you started playing?
I would have been about 12 or 13, I guess. Thereabouts. My parents bought me like a 3/4 size acoustic when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And there's photos of me having picked up that left-handed the wrong way around. I used to bang on that and my dad coming over and going, no, other way round. Because my dad was left-handed when he was a kid. My grandfather was as well. And when my dad started picking up, I think my grandfather had a lifetime of like everything being that little bit more awkward, being left-handed. So he sort of like, not literally, but beat it out of my dad, you know, like, no, not left-handed. So I think
they used to do that, didn't they? It's
absolutely.
You can't be left-handed. You had to be the other way around, you know. But I guess maybe when they were younger, maybe they still did it then.
Spawn of the devil, I think, back then. But yeah, so I think my old man had a lifetime, or an early childhood of being beaten out of being left-handed. So when I started picking up the guitar, I was like, nope, other way around. But I didn't really do anything with it until there was a mate of mine in school, mate / arch nemesis in the way you can do when you're like 12 or 13.
Yeah.
Who was better looking, was taller, was faster, was better at everything that he turned his hand to. And then naturally, come first year comprehensive, he starts having guitar lessons. So I was like, right, I'm going to have guitar lessons. I'm going to be better than Josh. And he gave up after about 6 weeks. So I kind of won by proxy, really. But it was the only thing I've ever done in my life where it felt sort of natural, I guess. Everything else that I'd done, whether it was sport or whatever, always felt a little bit of a kind of uphill struggle, you know, against people who were faster or more naturally athletic or better academically or whatever. And then suddenly there was this thing that was like my own, and I could sort of put all the hours that I wanted to in it. But I think I probably would have been about 15 hearing Guns N' Roses for the first time, and sort of, I mean, if you're going to decide that's what you're going to do with your life, that's probably the worst moment to do it, because that's when you're meant to be doing your GCSEs.
Yeah, I
And
know.
sort of, put an actual bit of effort into revision and all that kind of stuff. And I overnight decided that I was going to be a musician for the rest of my days. So,
Well, and here we are now. So you've not done a bad job.
I'm bumbling through it. It's this is the thing. It's one of those things that there's no set path really. You sort of go and tell your parents, I want to be a musician.
They freak out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or more precisely, I think, go in and I want to be a rock star.
Yeah.
And they go, cool. What does that entail then? What are you going to do? What is there a degree for that? Or
Well, they go, oh, that's good. You want to be a teacher?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, both of them had come from more kind of traditional backgrounds as well. But I mean, in fairness to them both, they were both incredibly encouraging. I think they sensed that it sounds a little bit pretentious, and I kind of stop myself every time I go to say it. But I think being a musician is more than just a job. It is like a calling, I think. And even if I wanted to, no, I couldn't do anything else with my life that wasn't musical in some way. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. It's too entrenched in me, and it's too intrinsically linked to my happiness.
Do you think it has to be, like you say, a calling in life? It can't just be a job, because although it's great being a musician and you look at these guys at the top of their game and they're flying around the world in their private jets, or they're playing everywhere, they're getting to meet all their heroes, they have people worshiping them, but they do pay a big price. Like it's not, a lot of them end up lonely, a lot of them end up, broken marriages and stuff like that. So there is a price to it. So I guess in a way, do you think that it has to be a calling as opposed to just a job?
I remember watching an interview with Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age years ago, and it might have even been on the Foo Fighters thing where they went and did a track in different studios all around the US. And they interviewed him, and he made some kind of really sort of salient point about, don't do it because you want to make money, or you want to be a rock star, or you want to achieve this or that. You do it because you love it. And I think if you love it, I think that drives everything else. And whether it's success you're after, or whether it's just to do a job that you love and you don't have to go and work in, I don't know, name any place that is undesirable to work in. I think first and foremost, you really have to love it, and that has to drive everything else. Because I think if you set off in search of, I know for myself, speaking personally, I set off on this journey of being a musician with very regimented ideas of not only what I was going to achieve, but how I was going to achieve them.
Right.
And then that all goes out the window straight away, because it doesn't work like that. Nothing in life works like that.
Can't
life
control
is what
anything. No.
Absolutely, life is what happens when you're making other plans. I think if you set off with very regimented ideas of how you're going to do something, you're only setting yourself up for disappointment and heartache. But like you said, it can be lonely. And I remember I'm an only child, so I've grown up very content with my own company. So if I happen to find myself on my own for a couple of days, more power to it. I just crack on with stuff. And then I remember I did a tour of Spain going back about 3 or 4 years ago, I guess, with a mate's band who their guitar player dropped out at the last minute. So I jumped in, had to learn the stuff at short notice, and off we went. And it was very much a kind of seat of your pants tour. Everything was kind of lumbered in the back of a van, and we were all sharing rooms. And then the kind of best night of the tour, in terms of accommodation, at least the gig was absolutely diabolical. But the accommodation, we were staying in a 5-star hotel in Bihar called Hotel Colon, which sticks in my mind.
Hotel Colon.
It's brilliant, isn't it? I guess it doesn't translate as well as it might. And this was after like a fortnight of gigs every single day. This was the first night we actually had our own rooms. I wasn't sharing with the singer. We kind of got thrust in together because we're the only pair in the band that don't snore, so we weren't likely to sort of thing. And I was on my own for the first time in like a fortnight, in terms of being on my own at all. And that was the first time I think I've ever felt lonely in my life. We kind of go back from this gig where there's people kind of waiting to have stuff signed and fans and crowd, etc., etc. And then suddenly you're on your own. And that's the only time in my life where I thought, well, I can see why people turn to other means then to try and bring back this euphoria. I mean, I was playing in a bar to like 50 people. Imagine if you're on stage in front of 20,000 and then suddenly you're in the back of a limo, and then you're in your hotel room on your own. It can be a desperately sort of lonely profession, but like I said, I think it's for me at least, and I can only speak for myself, it's more than a profession. It's a kind of calling that I was kind of destined to do. And I think my old man made the point recently. He said he spent his lifetime trying to find what he's good at, and seems yet to find it, whereas I kind of stumbled into it at quite an early age. So don't know, it's odd. It's like I said, I can't do anything else, so I'm not any good at anything else, so that sort of narrows my decision, really. So
well, it's not a bad thing to be good at, and obviously that during lockdown I decided to learn how to play.
Yeah, of course.
It's a burning ambition of mine for many years, and so I know I'm a bit late to the game, but like, how many hours do you think you have to practice?
I mean, 10,000 is the old adage, isn't there? I think I get a lot of questions about kind of practice routines and all that kind of stuff. But I think because I discovered it at a point in my life where, I guess as a teenager anyway, you tend to be a little obsessive over things.
Yeah.
I think that was probably a good moment to discover that. And at a time in my life when, save for GCSE revision, I had nothing else to do, and very quickly, I remember having a conversation with my dad where at the time I was playing cricket and I was playing football and I had a couple of other things on the go. And suddenly overnight became worried about hurting my fingers that would hamper me playing guitar. So I had a conversation saying, look, I want to give all of this up, apart from guitar. And I think my parents were a little bit worried initially because it suddenly goes from quite a sort of outgoing, what's the word I'm looking for, kind of extroverted existence into locking myself in my room and just playing guitar.
Yeah.
But that was kind of how serious I was about it. So I guess in that respect, I never once thought of it as practice. I just played because I loved it. And, it became the cliche in school where there's the kid with long hair walking around with a guitar case. It was never not by my side. So I'm not jealous of like yourself starting and kind of trying to figure out where to go and how many hours to put in and stuff, because I think I was very lucky in discovering it at a time when, frankly, I had bugger all else to do anyway.
Yeah. Which is kind of how it's come about for me in lockdown. It's been something that I've wanted to do for a while, and it's like, okay, well, what am I going to do now? I can't work. I'm not going anywhere. Well, I might as well actually learn to play this guitar that I've got sitting in the corner. So that's what I did. Just so I get my head around this, so are you talking like, were you playing just non-stop? You were always going around just noodling, and when you were
near enough, I think.
No.
Much to my parents' annoyance, I would imagine, and my wife's now. Constant noise, she calls me. But yeah, I really didn't have anything else that I wanted to do, But like I said, I'm not jealous of someone sort of picking it up for the first time now. But better late than never, absolutely. And thinking back, I was talking about this with someone the other day. I think I enjoyed guitar more when I wasn't reliant on it to make money, which I guess that can be said of anything, whether you're a writer, if you write for fun and then suddenly...
There's no pressure, is there, when you're just doing it for yourself? And that's
absolutely
the thing, I guess. So, yeah.
So I'm quite jealous of you sort of not being reliant on kind of your career to play guitar, but at the same time just doing it for the love of it,
Yeah, that's all it is for me. I'm not trying to be a professional guitarist or anything. I'm definitely not going to be a professional guitarist, that's for sure. I am destined to just talk about it. But no, I mean, it's quite nice that I can kind of strum a few things and stuff like that. But have you played much during lockdown?
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, the kind of saving grace, I guess, of lockdown is that over the last kind of year and a half or so, I've started doing more stuff online anyway.
Yeah.
I do a YouTube thing, like a weekly show called Friday Fretworks, which is me just finding anything I can to talk about at this point and just whittering on about it for 20 minutes. Guitar related, obviously. And I think that shift towards more online stuff, not that I knew it at the time when I started doing this, I didn't know there was going to be a global pandemic lockdown, but it's been my saving grace, because I feel like the kind of Bond villain that does well when the rest of the world sort of is in turmoil, because I've actually done quite well at a lockdown just in terms of how much work I've had. Don't get me wrong, I've lost I stopped adding up how much work I've lost in about the first week. I was
Oh,
like, this is
tell me
gonna
about it. As every like all your jobs were being cancelled by the minute, and you're like, oh my God, I know.
absolutely. I was meant to, this weekend. I was meant to be doing a kind of teaching school with Bernie Marsden at Stowe School in Buckingham.
Oh, I love Bernie. I want to try and get him on the show, actually.
Oh,
Actually,
awesome!
the funny thing is Martin, yeah, Martin, who was on earlier, I had dinner with, I introduced Martin to Joe Bonamassa and Bernie Marsden the
Oh,
we
cool.
went out for dinner. So yeah, that was quite
Oh, awesome.
fun.
Yeah, Bernie would absolutely be up for being on. He's a great raconteur as well. He's great company.
Such a great guitarist as well.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
underrated.
Yeah, no, too right. Do you know what? I think I would rather be underrated, but have written the songs that he's written,
Yeah,
and
right. I know.
and still have the ability to kind of walk down the street without being badgered. You know, to a certain degree, anyway.
Yeah.
I think that's probably kind of perfect scenario. You know, he seems quite content with his lot.
Yeah.
So
So what kind of work have you been doing then?
a lot of stuff for Fender, a lot of kind of teaching videos for their Fender Play thing. I work a lot with Yamaha as well, so I've been doing a lot of work for Yamaha and Line 6 by extension of that. Just playing videos, you know, kind of maybe running through a couple of different products.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else I've done coincidentally at the same time. Like I said, I've been doing this regular YouTube thing. I uploaded a video a couple of weeks ago about John Lennon's guitar playing because I'm a huge Beatles fan. My dad's a big Beatles fan.
Yeah.
And any kind of reference I've made to John Lennon in kind of recent videos always gets a little bit of a kind of knee-jerk response from people as the kind of great writer, crap guitar player. So I dug into that in this video and just picked out a couple of examples where not only kind of great songs, but actually relatively technically challenging parts. And put this video up literally about 3 weeks ago. That's had about 700,000 views since then.
Oh my God.
And all the stuff, John Lennon's Facebook page shared it a couple of weeks ago. So all the attention that has brought has kind of knocked on to other stuff, which in turn leads to work, you know. So it's kind of, yeah, it's been fortuitously timed, really.
Now, what was the guitar that John Lennon played that was known as I think more of a country music guitar. It wasn't a standard six string. It was.
I'm trying to think. The kind of big one he used to play with the Beatles early on was the Rickenbacker 325,
Yes,
which is
that's it.
like a little short thing.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, because I think the guy, Rickenbacker, whoever the guy was that created it.
Mr. Rickenbacker for
Yeah,
the
exactly.
for the
Usually that way,
yeah,
isn't it?
exactly, yeah.
I think he was going to give it to Paul, and then John Lennon got hold of it, and then that kind
Oh,
of
cool.
changed the sound of the Beatles or something. That's what I was reading about anyway. But it was a pretty cool guitar.
It's bizarre thinking about it that I guess arguably the biggest band of all time primarily used three instruments that weren't all that popular at the time anyway. You had Rickenbacker, which was a relatively obscure German make. Same with Hofner with Paul's bass,
Yeah.
and then Gretsch as well wasn't exactly Fender or Gibson, you know. So yeah, cool that they sort of championed the little guys, so to speak. But so just keeping busy with video work primarily. You know, I think when I started doing the video thing, I really wasn't comfortable in front of camera at all. And I guess if you've never been in front of camera, talking and kind of addressing the camera directly, it is quite an alien thing. I've been lucky that I've kind of got my head around that, I guess, over the past year and a half or so. So I kind of hit my stride when all there is to do is online work, you know.
I know, it's so funny, isn't it?
Just as well, really. But
So let's talk about gear then, as we were talking about Rickenbacker and stuff. What's your go-to setup? What's the gear that you like to play?
as long as it's got six strings, I'm happy, to be honest.
I
I think
play around with anything, so you don't care if it's a Tele or a Strat or a Les Paul or
the approach I've always
PRS.
taken. Yeah. I mean, the approach I've always kind of taken really is different tools for different jobs, you know, and you know, we wouldn't try and get a Les Paul to sound like a Strat and vice versa. So I've always been pretty kind of free and easy in that respect, but I'm lucky enough to be endorsed by Fender and all that kind of stuff. So a Strat, I guess, is kind of my primary instrument. But at the same time, like I said, I do a lot of work with Yamaha, and I've done a lot of work on a guitar called the Revstar. So I'm free and easy, really. Whatever's got six strings, and as long as it's in tune and I can get a noise out of it, I'm happy. But it's weird. I think, especially doing the YouTube thing, people assume I'm a lot more gear obsessed than I am, because it always gets views ultimately. If you talk about the minutiae of gear, people seem to love it. Guitarists, for the most part, are all horrific
Oh,
nerds.
it's guitar porn, isn't it, Gear?
Oh,
Because I've gone down that rabbit hole now. I found myself sitting there, so I've got the Strat. Yamaha gave me the
awesome.
acoustic, and then I've got a Les Paul
Yeah.
thing, the Greco, which is 1977 Greco.
Awesome.
But I found myself just online, like looking up tellies and stuff, and I'm like, I really want a telly. Look at that, like this beautiful blonde color, and I'm like, oh my god, this is going to change my life. I'm sure of it. I'm sure that if I get this, I'll be able to play really well.
That's the thing, isn't it? They sell you that. Like you're one guitar away from sounding exactly like the guitarist that you want to be. Of course,
which is
this
never
guitar that's holding me back. So
no, for sure. So obviously, you like you say, you do the Fender Play stuff, and a lot of your YouTube videos are kind of tutorial led and stuff, and they're actually really good. I've been watching them and picking up
cheers.
tips. But should we pick up the guitar and maybe have you got your guitar with you?
I have, yes.
What have you got?
Coincidentally, funnily enough, speaking of.
Yes!
I know. Speaking of short guitars with that Rickenbacker earlier, trying to untangle myself from the microphone here. I look like I'm about to launch into a karaoke session. Don't I? I've got this thing, which Fender sent me a couple of weeks ago. It's the Duo Sonic, which was a guitar they made in the early 50s as a kind of a student guitar. So it's like 3/4 size for small musicians with small hands was how they put it.
That's funny.
It's such a cool guitar.
Why is it cool?
It's called the Duo Sonic, and it's in, I can't remember what the colour is now, desert sand, I think. But it's kind of, I don't know. I'd not played, this is like an offset kind of thing, so like a Jazzmaster or a Jaguar or Mustang or any of those kind of things. And I'd never had one prior to this. So I'd always just assumed they were for the kind of indie guys, you know. But this has been an absolute blast. It's small, so it looks a little bit comic on me, who's not a small guy. But it's such a cool guitar. So I'm having a lot of fun with it. So I'm plugged into a little.
Very pretty. I like the look of that.
It is really nice, isn't it? It's sold on me. So
actually, and Brute, we've got the Twitch audience are watching, and Brute says it's a beautiful guitar.
Awesome.
It's going down well.
Well.
So yeah, I mean, for some reason, actually, maybe you can help me. My Strat is driving me mad. I can't. It's not. It just won't go in tune.
Right.
And it's the A string. I don't know what's happening to it.
Assuming
I tuned it, and on my tuner it says it's an A. That sounds horrible, doesn't it?
play the D string as well as the A string.
You know, I've got a way of learning.
Eddie ate dynamite. Goodbye, Eddie.
Oh, you do that? I do Easter bunnies get dizzy at Easter. Okay, so where on what fret?
Just open. If it play them together, and I'll see if it's in tune.
So I play the A open and then put my hand on the D string.
No, just play the A open and then the D open. So kind of simultaneously. Oh yeah, that.
That wasn't the D, was it? Easter bunnies get dizzy. Hang on, ready?
No, that's not in tune. That sounds like a minor harmony. That doesn't seem to be in tune.
It's horrid. And my A says that when my tuner auto tune says it's in tune.
Do you know what? If all else fails, I find myself, and there's a reason that it's got like 40 million views. It's a guitar tuner on YouTube, just of open guitar strings. That's probably my most watched video ever, because I've never owned a tuner in my life apart from the one that's on my pedal board.
Because I've got Polytune, I think is the one.
Okay, yeah, TC Electronic, yeah. That'll do the job, but all else fails, I find myself on YouTube. So.
See, hang on, what's it saying? Oh, it's saying it's a B now.
Yeah, I was going to say that sounds like a B, but I don't know whether the audio is knocking the pitch about that.
I'm wondering if these strings are old. See, I've had this. I haven't changed the strings. I've had this since 2015, I think. Is that why? Are the strings buggered?
Probably, but it should stay in tune at the very least. I sweat like an absolute lunatic when I play, so I burn through strings at a rate of knots, so I'm changing.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely not sweating the way I play, so.
Other way. Down we want to go. Keep going. Keep going. I'll tell you what. See if you can hear this.
That's apparently an A.
Do it again. Still slightly sharp. Keep going down. Keep going. This is riveting watching, I imagine, isn't it?
This is where this interview would go. I love it.
Keep going. You're nearly there. Keep going. See if you can hear this at your end. Nearly there. Still slightly sharp. Keep going down. Close enough for jazz.
We're not playing jazz, baby. I freaking hate this A string.
It's tuning guitars is an absolute nightmare. It's the reason why people employ other people to do this sort of thing. That sounds half decent, actually. There we go.
It's not too bad. Let's have a look.
Nice. You've got the first bit of Boston there.
That was a big voice.
Nice.
Oh! That was out tune.
I recognised it as Boston.
That was...
so that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Yay! There we go. Your A string is still very slightly sharp, but like I said, it's close enough for jazz. So.
Isn't it? Do you know something I've noticed about your playing, which my guitar teacher always tells me off about if ever I do it, is this with the old thumb. He's
right, okay.
Behind, and then so I watched you, and I was like, he's got his thumb right over there. If Pav was watching him do that, he'd get in trouble.
Oh, I'm a world of bad habits. I'm the last person on earth you want to be trying to copy. That, for me, started relatively late on. If you watch pretty much any clip of Hendrix, instead of playing kind of more traditional kind of bar chords, he plays them like that. So he's got his thumb over. Helps that he had hands like shovels as well. But instead of having that finger kind of all the way across, fretting your thickest string, he would get his thumb over. The reason being, it just kind of frees things up a little bit, and a lot of that kind of more melodic kind of rhythmic stuff he used to do, that's all just through using your thumb to basically fret the bass note. But if you're learning, it's probably not the best time to start doing it. It's give it a year or two and then kind of delve into it. So
one of my favourite tunes of all time, and I don't know if you've heard it, is Jimi Hendrix, but it's when he was doing his Band of Gypsies stuff.
Oh, right, yeah.
Gun.
Yeah.
Have you heard it? It's such a tune.
Oh, do you know what? Sacrilegiously, I discovered Jimi Hendrix kind of really late on. I think, like I said, my old man gave me a kind of big list of guitar players and records to dig into. Yeah. And I don't know whether I had like a Hendrix bootleg or something or whatever it was just a bit sloppy and out of tune and everything else that I was kind of trying to avoid at that point, I guess. And I mentally must have kind of thought, well, a lot of people seem to like him, so there must be something in it. I'll file that and come back to later.
Yeah.
And like I said, sacrilegiously, it took me a very long time. And again, I kind of worked my way back to Hendrix through people that were inspired by Hendrix.
But that's always good, though, isn't it?
Absolutely. I got there in the end, I think, is the main thing. But, kind of all that sort of, like, I use the word sloppy in jest, idiosyncratic, shall we say. All that kind of more kind of funny stuff he would do, I think, is what forms the kind of linchpin of my love of Hendrix now. So,
well, Jimmy Page is sort of a controlled sloppiness as well, isn't he? When he,
my wife has spent 10 years at this point trying to turn me on to Led Zeppelin, and
don't tell me.
I love Zeppelin, and I can absolutely appreciate Zeppelin, but like you said, it's that kind of controlled sloppiness, I guess, within Jimmy Page that at a time when you're kind of 15 or 16 and you've got kind of choices of like, who am I going to latch onto and who am I going to listen to? Slash sounded like Jimmy Page 2.0. It was kind of like the beta tested version of like, we've ironed out the kinks and all the kind of like sloppiness. And this is kind of like the refined version. But again, having come back to Jimmy, I can appreciate what he was doing. I think, again, as with most people, a lot of his strength lay in writing, how many kind of great tracks and riffs he wrote and stuff like that.
And he's producing as well, which is
Yeah, I mean, he produced all the kind of the big Zeppelin stuff, didn't he? You know, it's kind of that kind of gets overlooked. It's funny when my wife lived in Glasgow for a couple of years, so again, I was kind of based in Glasgow semi permanently for a while, and while she was up there, we made a kind of point of, right, let's go and do all the stuff around Scotland. Let's go and do kind of, Edinburgh or Skye or Loch Ness or the Isle of Arran, all this kind of stuff. So we went to Loch Ness, and obviously Jimmy Page owned Boleskine House, which is on the kind of banks of Loch Ness. And he only bought it because Aleister Crowley had owned it and had done some kind of black magic there, So
and it's apparently haunted, isn't it?
Well, it burnt down a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
so it's quite creepy anyway, at the best of times, I imagine, but it's like a burnt out shell now, so we're kind of going around, creeping around this house, looking into it, thinking Jimmy Page would have been in there, and I went to pick up a slate that had fallen off the roof.
Did you get it?
Well, no, my wife shouted at me and told me to put it back because it
Actually,
would haunt.
I don't blame her for making you do that, because I'd be a bit creeped out by it. It's like, oh my God, is that like some sort of relic thing that you're going to bring into the house, and all of a sudden you're going to have lots of bad luck?
Well, this was her logic. She'd seen an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? And something similar had happened, apparently, so I wasn't allowed a memento of Jimmy Page's house. So, there we go.
So Donny Cannabis is asking, do you ever play Joe Walsh songs?
Oh, I love Joe Walsh.
Yeah.
I've done kind of any number of tracks off Hotel California in covers bands over the years.
Do you know what's it in the Life in the Fast Lane?
I can probably try and bust it out.
Let's try it. Come on, give us a little tune.
Let's have a look. Let me try and move the microphone closer to this.
That's an incredible riff, isn't it?
Oh, amazing. Right. Something like that.
I love it. Brilliant. Can you move the screen down so we can see your hands a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Sorry, yeah. So I'm going to get a shot of my kitchen floor in the bins now. Sorry. Let's move that mic stand.
I think you may have done this before. There we go. I officially hate you.
It's a bloody tricky riff, that is. Joe Walsh, such a great player. He's one of those guys that kind of flies under the radar, I think, primarily because of how mental he is. I think when you're kind of sort of seemingly unhinged as Joe Walsh, everyone kind of focuses on the TVs out of bedroom windows and all that kind of stuff, as opposed to how bloody brilliant he is as a guitar player. So
I know, completely. Is there anything that you've been working on yourself, music-wise?
Yeah, bits and bobs. I mean, frustratingly, everything kind of ground to a halt, at the start of lockdown. So all this kind of plans of, we were meant to be doing Buck and Evans, the band I play, and we had a theatre show planned back in South Wales for September, which we guessed wasn't going to happen in about March when everything kind of started closing down. So, I mean, the way that I kind of write anyway is, I think if I try and sit down and actively think, right, I'm going to write a song today, you can guarantee the last thing you will do is write a song. So my phone or my voice memos are just full of chord progressions or ideas or melodies or riffs or whatever. Yeah. That then when I'm feeling particularly inspired, maybe in a week's time, I'll come back to the list of ideas, usually called decent idea or revisit or cool riff or something like that, So I've got a kind of world of stuff to kind of get around to, but that's the downside of being so kind of proactive in terms of videos and all that kind of stuff, is that when you finish a day of filming and editing and all that kind of stuff, like I said, the last thing you want to do is sit there trying to write a bloody song, So, like I said, it comes back to, I think I had more fun as a guitar player. This sounds really depressing. I don't mean it to be like that, but I think I had more fun as a guitar player when it was just a hobby, which in retrospect, I don't know if it was ever just a hobby. I think I always knew it was going to be something more, but as soon as that kind of impetus on this needs to be putting kind of bread on the table, everything suddenly becomes a little bit more kind of serious, So again, there's so many holes in my knowledge, kind of theoretical or stuff I want to try and play, but just haven't got around to it yet. But again, it takes a kind of back seat to stuff which I know will earn money in the short term, which is the age-old artistic temperament thing, I guess, isn't it?
So did you teach yourself or did you have lessons then?
Yeah, I had lessons. Like I said, I had a couple of lessons in school, primarily for the fact that Josh, the bastard, had started playing, and I needed to be better than him.
You could miss maths as well, yeah.
Absolutely, and I could just get out of lessons. So I had a couple of lessons in school, but again, my teacher in school, bless him, was your archetypal sort of failed rock star. So he was kind of slightly embittered at the world, that things hadn't worked out as well as he'd wanted, and he's there in a school in Abercumfight teaching snotty-nosed kids, and he's not on the Sunset Strip, So I had lessons in school for a while. I had a couple of lessons outside school, but for the most part, I think I was so single-minded and so kind of bloody-minded, I guess, and determined. I knew how I wanted to do things. I knew what I wanted to play. I had a guitar teacher outside of school for a couple of weeks who was hell-bent on showing me like flamenco stuff. And with the best will in the world, my hands or my fingers don't operate independently of each other, on my right hand at the very least. So that was an absolute no-go. Yeah. So I just kind of focused on what I wanted to do, I think, which for better or for worse.
Fair enough. Did you, so Donnie is asking, did you grow up playing any Nazareth? I think, he says, I think they're an underrated band.
Do you know what? This is sacrilegious, really. My only Nazareth knowledge comes from Guns N' Roses. They did a covers album back in about 93 where they covered Hair of the Dog, I think. And that's a great track. And I don't know why I didn't then dig into Nazareth. Like I said, my way was kind of discovering bands through other bands that were either covered them or were influenced by them. But Nazareth seemed to have slipped through the cracks. So I'll definitely work my way back to Nazareth at some point. So.
Fair enough. It's a funny story about us because the first time we met was Download. We were backstage at Download Festival.
Knee deep in mud as well, probably.
Yeah, knee deep in mud. What year was that?
2016, I want to say, I think.
Okay, and you came over to me and you said, I love your boots. My wife would love those. Where did you get them from? It's quite funny. That's really funny. And then I posted something up recently about being Stones gig in Wales.
Yeah.
And, you said, "Oh, I was there as well. I think you were in front of me." And so I was looking back through the pictures, and there was a video of me, and who's standing behind me? That is so funny. It's like we were destined to meet.
You sent that through and I showed my wife and she was like, "That's a horrific photo of you. You look like a serial killer." I was like, "Oh, thank you. I'll come to you for boosts in confidence from now on." God. That was so funny that night. My wife bought tickets really at the last minute. I'd seen them back on the Bigger Bang tour back in 2006, maybe at the Millennium Stadium. So I kind of, I love the Stones, but I think I was quite content having seen them once. I mean, with the best will in the world, the Stones kind of, they've always been a kind of ramshackle live band. That's the kind of beauty of it, I guess. Like I said, my favourite moment of that gig was when Keith started Jumpin' Jack Flash.
Oh, and he screwed it up.
Capoed at the wrong fret. And
he got the stink eye from Mick.
From Mick, I know. Brilliant. It was brilliant. And he kind of went shambling back over to the tech and kind of moved the capo up the fret. But that moment, I kind of twigged as soon as that kind of first bass note came in and it was a semitone out with Keith. I had this horrible moment where I was like, "Oh God, what's happening?" But I'd seen the Stones in Cardiff like 10 years ago, so I wasn't particularly hell bent on going to that gig. And my wife is a huge Stones fan, so she kind of kind of nagged me, and then she bought these lucky dip tickets, really like the day before the show. And I think by the nature of the lucky dip tickets, I guess you're either going to end up sat separately up in the, in a different postcode of the band, or you're going to be in a good position. And we happen to be in the golden circle just through like sheer luck. So it was like celebrity spotting all night. So I saw David Coulthard. Obviously yourself. There was just like everyone left, right and centre was kind of like, oh, I recognise those off the telly. And then bizarrely someone I knew put a video up a couple of weeks ago. I think it was like 3 years to the day or something since the gig. And she put a video up she'd taken on the night saying, I stood next to this bloke all evening. I was convinced that he'd gone out with a friend of mine. So I took a video of like the band, and then I kind of panned round to take a video of him to show my mates to try and figure out whose ex he was. And it turns out it's Jimmy Anderson, the England bowler. So it's like left, right, centre across that front row was just celebrities. So yeah, good gig.
It was a good gig, and it was a great gig for me because Ronnie Wood chucked his pick in the crowd and I got it.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, man. No, it was... I'm glad I went for, like I said, purely for the fact that we ended up, within bloody spitting distance of the band as much as anything else. So, yeah, good show.
That was so lucky that you got that lucky dip. Jesus Christ, I've never heard a story like that before.
No, I know. Like I said, I thought we were going to be in different postcode to the band, but yeah, that's the first and last time in my life I've ever been lucky. So I've used my allocation there, I think. So
no such thing. So do you want to play us something that maybe you've worked on yourself? Something you're proud of, maybe?
Why not? Oh man, let's have a look. I'm tangled up in all these.
Actually, Donnie says as well, it's hard to believe that the Stones are still going. I know what you mean, Donnie. I mean, it's incredible, isn't it?
I think you probably would have said the same in about 1980, though. They're sort of one of these bands that sort of seems to sort of keep going in spite of themselves. It's. I
mean, I love them, and to see Mick up there, like you and I have been right at the front, so we've seen it that close. He's so fit. He's like running around all over the place. He just doesn't stop.
He's got something like a 27-inch waist, doesn't he, or something?
Oh, he's tiny. He turns to the side and he disappears. Yeah, he's minuscule.
Absolutely. But like you said, it's cool that they're still going. I think, I think for all of the bands still kind of sort of probably past their sell-by date, I think the Stones are the exception that proves the rule. They're just as good as they ever were, in their own inimitable Stones-esque way, So let's have a look. I'll try and play something. Let me turn this down. Like I said, I've probably should have put my lockdown to more creative use and actually worked on some stuff, to be honest. But I'll noodle away for 5 minutes. Let's have a look.
Cool.
Hang on, let me turn the microphone down there. Unplug the headphones now, hang on.
I love the washing machine in the back as well.
See, you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. Anything more raucous than that, we'll have the neighbours kicking off.
The neighbours were kicking off, yeah.
The same neighbours who were outside our window banging around at 3 a.m.
There's a real kind of human element to the way you play. It's got the way you play has a lot of feel to it. It's like you pour your heart and soul, you channel it into that instrument.
That's very kind of. I kind of remember getting to a really kind of definitive crossroads, pardon the pun, where it was that kind of amazing age where all music is suddenly new music, whether it's Van Halen or Clapton. And I remember getting the best of Van Halen and the best of Thin Lizzy in like the same week. And and sticking that on, and kind of like Boys Are Back in Town came on, and then sticking Van Halen on, and Eruption came on.
Oh my God, yeah.
And I was like, right, that's amazing, but no way, as long as I've got a hole in my arse, am I going to be able to do that. Boys Are Back in Town, on the other hand, sounds like 4 or 5 chords. I'll give that a go. And that kind of very much set me on the kind of path, you know. So, yeah, I think I'm kind of limited by the notes that I know, which inherently stops me playing too fast or stops me kind of whittling away too much, which people seem to enjoy. So, yeah, as long as I know 4 out of the 5 pentatonic notes at this point, so I'm building up to that 5th one. So,
well, you're a lot more ahead of the game than what I am, that's for sure. So there we go. If you could give me one tip as a beginner, what would it be?
It's the cliched one, but just stick at it. Honestly, like, I remember, like I said, it was something I was always kind of driven to. So I guess as much as there were moments where I wanted to kind of jack it in or throw the guitar across the room, I probably had less of those than most.
Yeah.
But same with anything. I think it's kind of you get out of it what you put in. So for all the moments when your hands are hurting and your fingertips are crying out and all this kind of stuff, I think just persevere with it and stick at it, and you'll kind of, like I said, you get out of it what you put in ultimately. But failing that, learn stuff by ear. That's a slightly more practical tip. I think so many people get very reliant on tabs or music or any of that kind of stuff, but I think the more you're able to kind of distinguish chords or distinguish notes just by listening to them, that'll train your ear, and your ear is infinitely more useful than your eye in pretty much every respect. You know, to use a particularly crass example, when I played with Slash, at no point did anyone offer me any tabs or music or chords. It was like, right, you listen to us and follow us. And if I hadn't grown up kind of doing that anyway, I think I probably would have been absolutely bricking it more than I was ordinarily. So use your ear more than your eye, I think, would probably be my one semi-useful tip.
Yeah, that's some good advice, because when I was a kid, I played the saxophone, and
Oh, cool.
I did theory, so I did grades and stuff. I mean, I only got up to grade 3, but I couldn't. I would just read scores, and I could never play without a score. And so I just was like, I'm so rubbish at this. I can't think. I couldn't listen to something and then.
Yeah, that's part of the fun of it, is playing along with other stuff and kind of, you know, be able to stick a record on and figure out what key it's in and go for it. You know, that's, at least for guitarists, I guess that's part of the fun. You know, it's a kind of fun improvisational tool as much as anything else. So I think if you're limited by sheet music and all that kind of stuff, it kind of sucks the fun out of it a little bit anyway.
Completely sucks the fun out of it. Although it makes me laugh, because my guitar teacher was like, you need to learn to sing with the guitar. And I was like, well, I can't sing. I don't have a singing voice. And he was like, no, but it helps your musicality if you do. Well,
absolutely.
Let me tell you, I literally was strumming, so I kind of learned the how to play it. And then as soon as I tried to sing the words, my hands did something different. I was like, holy crap, I can't do the two together.
It's the whole kind of that thing, isn't it? I'm terrible at it. If I try and just talk while I'm playing, I end up talking in the rhythm of what I'm playing on the guitar. So yeah, I can appreciate that. It's difficult. The singing thing, though, is a good bit of advice. I think if you can hear the notes that you're trying to hit, and whether it's, like you said, you don't even have to be Aretha Franklin, as long as you can just pitch notes, that then really neatly kind of transfers to the guitar, you know. So again, it's just ear training. It's training your ear to what kind of notes you want to hear, or what notes you might hear coming out of your fingers next, you know. So
Sure.
yeah, sound advice.
Very good. And I know you're about to be a daddy, aren't you, soon, for the first time?
Yeah, I got to get my head around that.
Would you like to pass on your gift to your child? Do you think, would you like them to become a musician and go down the same path?
Yeah, I think it's, like I said, it's I've enjoyed every moment of it so far, apart from the moments I haven't enjoyed. But yeah, I think any child of mine would probably have some kind of level of inherent musicality, hopefully. But I, would just encourage them to do what they want to do, which is what my parents did, considering...
My parents the same, actually, yeah.
Both of them came from pretty kind of more traditional backgrounds. My mother was a teacher and my dad was a graphic designer, so both of them went down the kind of more traditional route. So I think credit to them for being okay with the idea that I might not end up in a 9-to-5, So yeah, whatever anyone wants to do, as long as it's not illegal.
Fair enough. Okay, Chris. Well, it has been amazing chatting to you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I mean,
Thank
I
you for having
love.
me.
Oh God, anytime, anytime you want to come back, come on. You can give me some more tips and stuff. Please.
Finally tuned our E string.
I think everyone on Twitch has really enjoyed having you on. So
Oh,
that's been
awesome.
great as well. So good luck with everything. And how long are you in
Thank you.
France for?
In France for about a month now before heading back to the UK.
Nice.
And then hopefully things will start to pick up and we're allowed outside again and all that kind of. I mean, France seems a lot more kind of normal, I guess, for want of a better phrase. I went to London a couple of weeks ago, and I've never seen central London like it. It was, you'd walk into some streets and you'd be the only person on the street. You know, it was like the apocalypse had kind of kicked in. So yeah, I'm hopefully, I don't know. I think I've written off the rest of this year. We've got a festival. We're playing Planet Rockstock at the end of the year in Treacle Bay. If it happens, if it doesn't, then next year. You know. So yeah, I don't know. Just a missing gigs, missing other people, I think, as much as anything. So, yeah, hopefully back to some sense of normality soon.
Brilliant. I totally agree with you. I mean, it feels like it's sort of starting to happen a little bit, doesn't it? So
Slowly but
fingers
surely,
crossed, fingers crossed indeed. Well, enjoy your month in France. I hope
Thank
you
you.
have fun. And yeah, we'll speak to you soon.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for having me, Kylie.
Thanks for coming on, Chris.
Take care. Cheers for watching, guys.